Welcome to the Super Region 4 Playoff Podcast. I'm with my guy AC. AC, how are you doing there, my guy?
Hey man, I'm super excited. Playoff football, best time of the year, right?
Absolutely. It's kind of what we've been waiting for a while. We do have a programming note to mention. Last minute thing came up with Kris McCullough, the coach of UTPB, who was going to join us. He will be joining us next week. Cannot make it this week. Actually had an emergency thing happen with his child. Cut his forehead. He's got an infant son, and they had to head off to the ER to get some things taken care of. And AC and I said, we're both dads. We said, go take care of that, and we'll go ahead and take and be happy to see you next week. So, but AC, you and I have a lot to unpack here on this show. We're going to be talking a little bit about what we found out yesterday with playoff stuff. I'm going to get a chance to get revenge on you in the pick'em this year after you beat me last year when Mines beat Augustana and I got roasted by Mines fans for the next 3 weeks.
Until I did, of course.
So let's go ahead, AC, and take a look a little bit about who the top seeds were in case you were under a rock in D2 land and didn't see any of this. Pretty much the expected parties that we had. And, AC, we had kind of talked a little bit about Pueblo and Augustana, maybe going into that last week with Augustana having maybe an outside shot of getting the 1 seed. And then they go ahead and lost to Bemidji, and all of a sudden it's just Pueblo sitting there.
Oh, yeah. It was the way it was lining up, like as it was happening, like Pueblo was down 21-7 in the shattering, so it was lining up really nicely. Like it looked like Augie was gonna sneak in there for that one, but Bemidji handles business and earns their ticket, which is you got to respect that.
So we're not going to talk a whole lot about Pueblo this week because they don't play a game, but they were down 21-7 at half to Shadron.
Mm-hmm. Shadron has a really good defense. They got Hunter O'Connor on that defensive line.
I totally agree. The 21 was the part that surprised me.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. Like, that's been my thing. I don't want to give away too much, but Pueblo and them playing to their potential versus playing to the level of their opponents. I think that's gonna be we're gonna be watching that in these playoffs.
Fair enough. Well, moving past the 1 seeds, if we go ahead and we take a little bit of a look at the bracket here. I kind of mixed thoughts, AC. You and I did these shows last year with regard to Super Region 4. And at the top of the bracket, we had Minnesota State going to Augustana. At the bottom of the bracket, we had Central Washington going to Western Colorado. We had Bemidji going on the road to Texas. They were facing UTPB. And there was a Colorado team waiting to play everybody, and that was mine. So this is different, but there's a lot of similarity to it. I can't fault the committee because it's not their job to come up with a different bracket for my own entertainment. But, at the same time, yeah. As a fan of the Northern Sun, AC, I could go without seeing Minnesota State and Mankato play for the 4th time in the last 2 years.
Oh, I can only imagine. For me, I was at the Central Washington Western Colorado game, which ended in dramatic fashion. But because they're not in the same conference, I'm actually really looking forward to that rematch. But yeah, sure. 4 times in a 2-year span, I'm sure that's quite a bit to take in. Well, hey, I mean, this is the field that they gave us, and we got to go with it.
Yeah, and Bemidji is no stranger to Angelo State. They went down there in 2022, if my memory serves me right. And Angelo, it was a close game for about 2.5 quarters, and then Angelo just kind of took over from there. Now Angelo's back in the playoffs after a year off. Ends up capturing a 3 seed. A week ago when we looked at all of this, it wasn't necessarily trending towards Western Colorado being on the 2 line, but they took care of business in a big way Well, I shouldn't be talking about that because that probably was a little bit sour for you going against Colorado Mesa, but that was kind of like a never up, never in kind of game. Like it was all one side.
It was. It was. I actually kind of predicted that.
Yeah. Well, so then we kind of look at the rest of the field, and obviously Pueblo has clearly earned that number one spot. And as we go ahead and we kind of take a look, I'm going to go ahead and look at Pueblo for one moment. You went ahead, if I'm not mistaken, beginning of the year, you picked this one, did you not?
I did. I did. I said if somebody was going to unseat mines, it was going to be Pueblo. Just, I thought they were really good in Coach V Hill's first year, and I knew with an off season to really, really get his system in there and some more guys that he personally wanted and handpicked, I knew they were going to be really good, and they that bared out during the season.
Yeah, and they've got the most explosive offense in this super region, and they're teams are gonna have to come through them. So this is they got themselves in a real good spot. Now there was some people who had asked last night, today, about did anybody get snubbed here in this, and you know what, the closest thing to be a snub would be the University of Sioux Falls, who was kind of right on the cusp with Minnesota State and Bemidji. They were a three-way tie. All three of the teams had three losses, and they frankly had all kind of beaten each other in that little circle. So that said, it ended up coming down to the numbers at the end, and it didn't bear out for Sioux Falls. And I noticed today, for example, their athletic director John Hart had mentioned, tough break for Sioux Falls, and really happy for the job Coach Glogowski did this year. Coach Glow turned them from a 3-win team a year ago. They were in a bad spot, and then all of a sudden to 8-3 this year. And a lot of folks have asked me, Mankato versus Sioux Falls is kind of what a lot of people were looking at because Bemidji played strong down the stretch, and you can certainly make a case that Sioux Falls is playing better football down the stretch than Mankato. Mankato, 3-3 over the last 6 games. Sioux Falls 5-1. But when it really comes down to it, and it's all about your entire body of work. So Sioux Falls can't take away their loss to Minot.
Yeah.
And so all these things are your total body of work, and that's kind of how we got here. So. Moving on and taking a look a little bit, let's kind of introduce some of these teams to everyone that's looking at this from the Lone Star, from the Northern Sun, and obviously our MAC fans here who, folks who are not familiar with who this 2 seed is in Western Colorado. And we're not going to obviously go through every stat here, AC, but I tell you the areas that we've kind of highlighted in white. Offensive scoring and rushing defense are 2 things that kind of jumped off the page to me, kind of preparing these graphics. What can you tell us a little bit, about, some of this squad and some of their weapons and how we got here?
Well, Drew Nash, first and foremost, Drew Nash is just taking his game to another level. Last year, he was a really good quarterback last year, but more of a game manager. They really leaned on the defense. They had a 1,000-yard back in that backfield and Davon Butler. But This year, you've just seen the growth. His ability to throw the ball, his ability to read defenses, his running ability has really been on display this year. So Drew Nash, he leads the way, and he's arguably the best quarterback within the conference. I'm sure people will argue that, but for my money, he just might be. And then defensively, it starts with Ricky Freeman and Kendall Lightfoot. The front 7 is just, they're hellacious. Ricky Freeman is all over. He lives in the backfield. And the way Coach Auer calls his defense, the way he blitzes, there's always a guy coming free. There's always a free runner at the quarterback. So they're just a team that they play really good defense. You can't run the ball on them. You saw that 74 yards a game. They really stopped the run. Where they do, kind of their Achilles heels on the back end, though. If you can protect, if you can slow down Ricky Freeman and Jaden Young and other defensive linemen they have, and you can pass the ball, you can beat them over the top. And that was on full display in the Pueblo game and somewhat in the Mines game. But overall, a really sound, solid team. When Braden Hogan has it going, when their running game has it going, they're really tough to beat. But if it's not going, Drew Nash is good enough to just put him on his back and carry him.
Well, and a concern that you and I had was I saw that Hogan didn't play this last game in a game where they kind of needed it. Theoretically going into a Mesa game, but Ricky Freeman with 20 tackles for loss, that's up with some of the best nationally in that measure. So that's eye popping, and I saw him get with a sack the other day where he kind of came around the corner, and he's a ferocious player. Certainly somebody to watch. I think Drew Nash, when I watched him, I thought he played better in big games this year than he did a season ago. And, a season ago, whether it was their playoff game, whether it was the Colorado Mines game, versus this year, I mean, even in the game they lost, he threw for 400 yards or whatever it was.
Completed a Hail Mary at halftime. I mean,
right.
He dragged them back into that Provo game because that could have gotten ugly.
Well, you know what? As I took a look at the Super Region here with these 7 teams, this is not a high-flying Super Region for the most part. There's a lot of teams that play good defense, and I'll be interested to see, can some of these teams really get things going offensively, or is every one of these games going to be kind of a challenge that way? Now, let's go ahead and, for those who aren't familiar with where they play, the Mountaineer Bowl, highest elevation among all college football teams. You've been to this place. This is their second year. Well, it's been 1 year exactly, almost like to the date this has been opened, right?
Yeah, it opened last year, kind of ominously, with a playoff game against Central Washington. It wasn't fully complete, though. Obviously, the field was playable, but the stands and the whole complex wasn't all finished, but it is now, and I've been there this season. It's amazing. It is absolutely stunning.
Well, and you know what, we do have, since this is a live show, we do have some folks that are going to be there in the comments as well. So I noticed that we've got Craig Fenn, who is our Lone Star columnist, and Craig does a fantastic job. I want to point that out. Craig went ahead and said, yeah, in a weird game this season with Western State, 400 yards passing against them. That was early in the year. And that's kind of what you mentioned a little bit, AC, was, if they don't get home up front, then there could be some challenges with that. I don't know necessarily if Super Region 4, for the most part, is an area that you're going to face those kind of teams. A lot of these teams are a little bit more of a balanced, kind of attack. So we'll have to see. Now, as you and I kind of go ahead and we look a little further, you go ahead and look at the Mountaineers, Twitter page here. They're going ahead. I wasn't sure if they were already circling, their team as if they won or not in that graphic, but sometimes that's a whoops, not whoops on Twitter. But so are you going to have a chance to head on over to this, or are you already tied up on Saturday?
I'm totally planning on making my way up to Gunnison one way or another. I don't miss playoff games. I don't miss these games. These games are too big. Having been there last year and seeing how it played out, yeah, there's no way I'd miss this game.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, their first round game last year was like 16-13 in overtime or something like that. It was a 3-0 game at half, which made me wonder what was going on there. But neither team could really kind of get the offense cooking.
It was defense won the day. Central is just a couple big plays. Darius Morrison got loose for about 2 touchdowns. That final one was really, really devastating. It was a walk-off touchdown, like you don't see that much, but a literal walk-off. It was it was a lot. I can't wait to see, and there's a lot of the same players. The Western guys, they didn't forget what happened last year. Like, I'm excited to see that chess match and see them step up to that challenge and compete again. It's gonna be a really good game, I think.
Well, I remember Tyler Flanagan, their lunch pail back. He got like a shoulder right away in that game and never returned.
Hmm.
And I thought when I saw that, I thought, oh, they don't have a chance, and they still found a way. And you mentioned Mr. Morrison, and in the comments here, we've got, I'm assuming, Dad Lenny here
Oh
going
yeah.
ahead and kind of
Oh
supporting our show, and he's really supported all our shows. I wanted to kind of give him
yeah.
kudos there, but obviously his son with a big moment in that game. I remember that as well. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the third ranked team. That was, where Pueblos not are playing this weekend, so we're not kind of going over them this week in detail. We will next week when they play. So we started off with the number 2 team, which was Western Colorado. Number 3, we have Angelo State. Angelo State, when we take a look at them, some things I noticed is I got a chance to see them early in the season. I watched their game with Emporia. They played up at Fort Hays and Emporia. I didn't get a chance to see the Fort Hays game. They got rain delayed and had to stay another day in Kansas. No, I'm not joking. And the Emporia game, Emporia won like 17-12, and it was a ugly football game.
Hmm.
Offensive offensive football was, execution was at a premium in that game. So it is what it is. But they, since that time, have really gotten their offense cooking. In the last few games, they've started to find a little bit of an over-the-top threat in the pass game, and they have a quarterback who can make some plays running. But before we get to that, their defense, I still think, is their situation.
Oh yeah.
They've gotten defensive scores this year. They've gotten turnovers. Craig just mentioned in the comments they haven't given up more than 21 in a game all season. I have thought of them from the moment the season started as a defensive team who now has their offense clicking a little bit. This is a dangerous football team coming into the playoffs. AC, 12 points a game. That's pretty tough.
That's wild. Less than 2 touchdowns.
Right,
Less than
right.
2 touchdowns a game. What really stands out to me is just the way they're trending. You mentioned their offense right now, as the season has progressed, has really got it going. So it's like they're kind of, this is what you want. You want to be hot and playing your best ball heading into the playoffs. What they seem to be doing, and they've been rewarded. I'm sure they're happy to be having this game at home and not having to go on the road. Maybe that little Texas heat could help them out a little bit this
Well,
weekend.
you know what's funny is their opponent, Bemidji State, is actually happy to go down to Texas. Not necessarily because of the weather. They're just sick of seeing Northern Sun teams in the playoffs every year. Because I mean that's kind of just such a common thing anymore. But also, real quick, we've got one of our friends in the comments
Oh
here,
yeah.
Kobe from D1 Rejects. Kobe, just if you're not familiar with their content, give them a look. See, we are not. We're all in this kind of this small college football thing together. We're not adversarial, or Pepsi and Coke and what have you. Kobe does a great job with D1 Rejects, and he's helped us on and off this year with some of our own graphical stuff with our main guy Brandon.
Mhm.
Dow not able to help us out with that this year. He was kind of our main guy, and so if you can't get enough of this kind of stuff, go ahead and check out some of D1 Rejects on YouTube. Just thought I'd mention that. Thanks for joining us there, Kobe. And I
Oh
know
yeah.
you've been on with him before as well, right?
Oh man, I love going on with him. I love his whole setup. Like he's
Yeah.
really he has a vision, and I love that. Like he thinks of things and he makes them happen. Like I remember
Yeah.
last year, they did a game day show
Hmm.
like at a school outside. Like I love him and just his ingenuity. He's awesome, dude.
Yeah, doing good things, doing good things. Um, let's go ahead and move to a little bit of the personnel. A lot of the show is us giving you guys an introduction to these teams. You're watching these from a different conference, and they may not be super familiar with some of these names. Our guy Craig Fenn, kind of mentioned the fact here in the comments that the quarterback has not thrown a pick all this year.
Oh,
So Braden Fuller, 18 tuds, no interception, 58% passer. A lot of the stuff that they like to do is taking some shots down the field, AC. And, with that, he had an 80-yard touchdown run this last week. And I'll be real frank, the first few weeks of the season, when I was watching their games, quarterback runs was their main offense. And they have since evolved from that. But I would expect for Braden Fuller to carry the rock 15 times, maybe 20 times this Saturday. I think that this is the kind of time when they're going to lean on him for something like this. I really think so. Now,
how that fares against that front seven they're playing, we shall see.
Well, that's the thing is I'm not sure. No, I'll say it. I think these are probably the two best front fours. Maybe not just in this super region, but maybe in the country. Both of these teams up front are a handful. And so we'll see, we'll talk a little bit about Bemidji here shortly, but you go ahead and you see, for example, Andrew Pitts. Now, AC, you're an old DB. Andrew Pitts is 5'9" in cleats. And you know what? I've had coaches tell me that he is maybe the best cover guy in all of Division II football, and that wasn't just this year. So this guy, 8 pass breakups, 6 picks, and that's considering that people don't throw to him that much.
6 picks as a corner specifically. That's a really big season, especially when you're covering man, when you're not playing zone and looking at the quarterback. He's a guy that can cover man, run with a guy, turn around, find the ball, and go get it. I'm a big fan of his.
They've also been leaning on him a little bit in the punt return game, so keep your eye out for number 3. Heck of a ball player there for Angelo. And, we've got Eric Rasco. You could have chosen quite a few guys on their defense. Frankly, that all kind of have similar numbers, AC. You're not going to see guys on a team like this with 100 tackles because they get off the field too soon. They're not when you go 3 and out, you're not going to see a team getting 100 tackles in a year because they're getting off the field. So this Angelo defense gets a lot of turnovers. They go ahead and they turn that into instant offense, and they're a quarterback run +1 type of offense that's now hitting more shots down the field. It's a dangerous ball club, and I guarantee you, Bemidji State is going to have to concern themselves with some of the speed they have on the outside.
That's the main thing that I'm thinking. I know they're going to be fast. That's the kind of teams that they've had in years past. I think another thing that we should consider and talk about too is just because they had that year of way, that chip on their shoulder. Everybody may have forgotten about Angelo. Like Angelo wasn't going head to head with Mines to come out of this region for a few years in a row. I'm sure they're looking forward to reminding everybody that they're a factor in this region.
Absolutely. So we're through 3 of the teams so far, and as we look through, this is kind of what AC mentioned. Hey, a little bit. No one's talking about this group right now. I don't doubt that they're fine with that. Because let's be honest, a few years ago, when we were talking about Colorado Mines, the other team in the super region we were talking about is the one writing on the page here. So this team is athletic. This team is going to have, gets to play at home here. So this is an interesting thing to watch. And we all kind of saw this slowly coming on this season, AC. They started off with the 2 losses, but then they just kept winning games, and it kind of felt like the team nobody in the Lone Star wanted to play.
Yeah.
So
they just built and built. And like I said, it seems like they're really trending in the right direction at the perfect time, right as the playoffs are about to kick off. Seems like they're playing some of their best ball.
Absolutely. So as we continue to move forward, we get to the team that was sitting on the 2 line just a week ago, not even. And now they're on the 4 line. Now they still get a home game. And, they have an 8-2 record coming in. That's Division II only. For those who are wondering, if you look them up, they have an 8-3 record. Well, They went and played at the FCS champ South Dakota State, who's about an hour up the road, and lost 24-3. But I'll be honest with you, I was at that game, and there were 20,000 people there, and that was like a 14-3 game at half or something like that.
Mhm.
They didn't account for themselves poorly, and they slowed down the South Dakota State running game.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what they've done to just about every team in the Northern Sun this year. Their rushing defense is the thing that stands out the most. Almost every one of these teams we're talking about, AC.
Yeah,
Good
I
run
think
defense.
that may be the thing that busts through. I mean, that is playoff football in itself. Good defense, and which team is actually going to be able to run the ball against these other ones?
Right, right. So now in their losses, they had the two losses. They lost Moorhead, who was able to really throw the ball. Moorhead, if they get their passing game going, I mean, I think they finished second in the country in passing yards.
Oh yeah,
And then Bemidji just won a 17-10 game this last week, where Bemidji simply was able to kind of keep them down for the better part of it, and slow their running game down. So. One of the things I look at with Augustana is I thought before the last few weeks that maybe their offense was better than what they've shown. These last 2 weeks, Epperson saved them 2 weeks ago against Sioux Falls in a game where they otherwise were not clicking offensively. And then you had the Bemidji game. They had 211 yards of offense on Saturday at Bemidji. That's just not going to win you football games when you're in this kind of company with other kind of teams like this.
Mhm.
So Augustana, though, is a fairly balanced football team. They're not outstanding in either facets. Gunnar Hensley, younger quarterback, a sophomore, who is 225 yards passing. What we're seeing as a common thread with all these is they have a quarterback who can make some plays with his feet when he needs to.
Mhm.
All of these quarterbacks are fairly efficient. You got in the middle there, you got Jared Epperson.
That's what makes them go.
Yeah, he's the guy, that you're going to need to stop. Almost 4,000 career rushing yards, which is quite a stat if you think about
Oh yeah,
that.
oh yeah.
But he's approaching 1,000 yards this year. They kind of started him off slowly, and then have really brought him on. As you can see, he's averaged 128 yards a game in the last 6. And then DB Peyton Buckley, who's a safety / linebacker / anything they need him to do. And he's one of our other Elite 100 defenders that we're going to be talking about here. And he just, as you can see in the stat line, he does a little everything.
Mhm.
You don't see a lot of guys with 7.5 tackles for loss and 8 pass breakups.
Mhm.
That's an interesting combo. But so you will see 8 in the box when they need him. You'll see him, going ahead and playing against one of their best offensive players if needed. They use him for a little bit of everything. And Gunnar Hensley has another quarterback who's got a nice upside. A lot of times they don't put it all on him. They try and go ahead and get that running game really going
Mhm.
and spread the ball out a little bit and play good defense. So not a high flying team here at all. And we're kind of seeing that as we're going through. These are not the type of teams who are trying to average 40 a game and give up 25 a game.
Do you think Mr. Hensley, if put in the situation where he's going to need to, win the game through the air, do you think he's capable?
You know what? He was able to do pretty well against Mankato, and they were able to kind of take off in that football game. I'm not real sure. That's something that when they struggled yesterday or on Saturday, their offensive line had trouble with Bemidji's defensive line, and he was under duress, got sacked a few times, and they just couldn't get things clicking. So I think it's a legitimate question that you have there. They've got plenty of weapons that they use on their offense for receivers, but Epperson still is kind of the guy that they need to get him going. And by the way, for those who are joining us and may not have seen us immediately when we came on, I love the love coming here. Coach has not been able to make the show. I'm going to tell you. We mentioned at the top of the show. He had a situation with his child, his infant, where he had to take him on in. He got a cut on his head. So I just kind of wanted to let everybody know he will be joining us next week for the show. But, it's one of those things, as AC and I have talked about, we're both dads. We got to take care of our kids first before we do anything kind of like leisure or entertaining all the D2 folks. But
we're hoping his kid is great and all right, man. We hope it's just a little cut.
Exactly right. Exactly. We couldn't have said it better. Taking a look at the socials here, Augustana, we'll meet again. And they kind of talk about the fact that this is, they're playing them again, and this exact game happened last year, and Augie blew away Mankato in that game. It was 52-24, something like that. And Mankato just they kind of had a bad slide to the end of that season, and it was what it was. But as we're going in, I'm going to go ahead and move us to the next one here. But it looks like we're going to have somebody making a run in here in just a moment as we get to Central Washington. So this is pretty good timing. Hey, down there, KM, give me the thumbs up if whenever you're ready. So, guys, apparently back from being gone, Coach McCullough joins the show just like that. And Jordan, apparently Jordan must have known that you were coming in, because he thought a moment ago he said knowledge bomb incoming. So he must have known something. But Coach, first of all, is everything okay?
Yeah, sorry, my son decided to yeet himself off the couch at about 5:45. So quick trip to the ER and everything is good.
Okay, very
We're
nice.
happy to hear that. We're happy to
Did
hear
you take your anxiety pills? Are you doing okay right now after all that?
I'm more anxious now than I am in any game I've called this year, I'll tell you that.
Well, fair enough. Interesting. Okay. See, our fans don't realize that this is a pretty big deal coming on with me and AC here.
Yeah, it can get hostile in here.
He rolls his eyes and shakes his head. Did you catch all that, AC? So, hey, we're doing an introduction to the teams, and I'm going to go ahead and backtrack just for a moment. We were going ahead and talking about Angelo State in your league. And, we were kind of talking a little bit about how good this defense is. In addition to that, some of these ball players, what additional insight can you give us, Coach, having gone against this group?
Oh, yeah, well, I'll tell you, Andrew Pitts is the best defensive back I've ever faced in my 10 years. Last year when we played him, my game plan was find three was the first thing Kenny Hertzer had to look at. And then number two was post-snap, make sure three is nowhere close to where you're going to throw the ball. And that kid's special. He's the best defensive back in our conference. And there's a reason he has 23 interceptions in his career and 6 this year with last week he had a touchdown off interception. So unbelievable player. Eric Rasco is probably the freakiest looking linebacker in our conference, and he plays like it too. I mean, that kid is unbelievable. But they really go through the success they've had this year, and they've gotten better every single week, runs through Braden Fuller. That kid, he took over probably the starting range week 3 and has 18 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's a dual threat guy that's probably one of the most dangerous runners we've faced all year. He broke an 80-yarder on us. The kid's phenomenal. I mean, their team is built for the playoffs. Great defense, great offensive line play, and just enough playmakers on offense to make it dangerous.
Now, Coach, we were kind of talking about when I watched Braden Fuller and I watched their offense earlier in the year, I watched them against Emporia. And, Coach, I had a hard time making it through that football game because it was 17-12, and offensive execution was kind of at a premium in that one. It seems like they have gotten a few extra elements to that offense. They've started to be able to throw the ball down the field much better, become a threat to go ahead and get you over the top. and Fuller continues to be a really good threat with his feet. Is that kind of how you guys have seen it, that this team was really a defensive football team that's kind of developed since then?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, to start the year, those two non-cons, they went with two quarterbacks, even three quarterbacks in the Emporia game. They were just trying to figure out what their identity is.
Right.
And then Coach Kisner and obviously Coach Gersh, one of the best head coaches I know, went with Braden. And ever since then, man, they have really been rolling. And they don't have one specific target on offense they just have a plethora of receivers they distribute the ball to, and they're all talented enough to break a tackle and go to the house.
Right. By the way, our Lone Star columnist, Craig Fenn, he's in the comments. He welcomed Coach to the show. Craig, once again, does a great job. If you haven't had a chance to read his stuff on our site, definitely make a point of catching up with it. Coach, we were just now going to be getting on into some of the other squads that we hadn't quite hit yet, and we were just getting here to Central Washington. So as we go ahead and we get to Central Washington, this was a team that made me look foolish last year in the playoffs. I had them losing round one. I had them losing round two.
Me as
And
well.
I got to wear it both games. And, this team, it wasn't pretty, but they got the job done, and they made it, all the way to the regional final. So, Coach, it seems like their identity isn't terribly different this year. Kind of a two-headed monster in that you've got the quarterback who's going to go ahead and might run for 100 on you. You got the running back who will. And that's kind of the identity, along with being a very good defensive team, only giving up 210 yards a game. Here we have Kennedy McGill and Tyler Flanagan. When you guys play against them, is it pretty much all about, we just got to stop the run game?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know what happened last year when we won the Lone Star Conference championship, but after that, Central Washington just rolled in the playoffs. Right? It was a wake up call for them, and obviously, you guys picked against them, and I'm sure everybody did, and they just kept rolling. And they obviously go through Kennedy McGill. I mean, the kid is an unbelievable athlete. When you're facing them, you got to load the box with 8 or 9 guys and just trust your corners to win one-on-one. Because if you let Kennedy McGill and Tyler Flanagan get to work and get confidence behind a really good offensive line, who, their head coach is their offensive line guy, Chris Fesk, and he's a great offensive line coach. But if they get rolling, it can be hard to stop.
I remember when we were doing our Elite 100 list, our preseason list this year, and they had multiple offensive linemen that we were looking at on that list. We ended up taking one as well. But, Tyler Flanagan's been a guy who's been doing it for a while there. I remember when they played at Northwest Missouri State before COVID, and he was the starting running back that day. So he's been around for a little bit. And, they've got he's got 2,500 career rush yards, and he's still got another season left, if I'm not mistaken. And, 36 career scores. He's only about 200 pounds, but it looks like he is a more of almost like a hybrid fullback with the way he runs. And McGill with their +1 run game, I think that he is. You got to worry about keeping him under 100 almost every game, it seems like. Coach, if we look on the other side, Tanner Volk has not had the season he had a year ago. How are you going to? What did he have? 15 interceptions or whatever it was, and 120 tackles. It was like video game numbers. But I remember this year he got Player of the Week one week. He still having a strong season. When you see their defense, how do you characterize them? How do you guys need to try and go ahead and attack them? What do they take away?
Yeah, it starts with their defensive line this year. They have 2 DNs that were really, really solid in the pass rush, but also great in the run game. They had 2 young D tackles that were undersized, but they were built to stop the run game. Their defensive scheme, they put basically the boundary safety in a middle plug type of area of 9 yards right over the center. and it makes it hard because you always have 7 in the box on defense. So you're always going to be down a number in your 11 personnel sets. I think the difference for Tanner and his production this year isn't the player, obviously. He's still a great player. They kind of moved him more to the field safety, took him away from the rover. So he wasn't near the ball as much. I think that's where you see his tackles drop off and his interceptions drop off a little bit. But
Right.
They've had to do a really good job. They had injuries too in the defensive back room, and they've been trying to plug and play a bunch of guys in there. And I think the last few weeks they've kind of figured out where to put the right guys, and they're starting to roll.
AC, you had a chance to see this club a year ago. I'm assuming you were fairly surprised at that time how they were able to limit Western Colorado a year ago, because obviously Western Colorado was not able to do what they wanted to do offensively. Is that kind of what was that be your biggest takeaway in seeing them up close?
Yeah. Aside from mines, I had seen Davon Butler for Western just run all over everybody, and they were able to shut Davon down. Like, one of the only 2 games he didn't go over 100 last year was against this team, and that led to the onus being more on Drew Nash. And like we said last year, Drew Nash maybe wasn't the player he was this year, and they made it happen. Volk came up with an interception in the red zone, a red zone pick. Their defense is just scrappy, and at all 3 levels. I'm not sure if McCullough is still on their squad, the linebacker number 40, but I remember him being really good. Just all 3 levels of their defense had players that were making plays. The defensive end number 38, I'm not sure of his name, but I remember him last year. He was really good. 42, another defensive end. Like, I'm just thinking about the game. They're all popping in my head right now, but they were just a scrappy bunch, and they compete. They weren't the biggest. They weren't the most intimidating or imposing bunch. Like, Volk's not the most imposing guy, but he just finds a way to be around the ball. Like, I do think in this game, if Drew Nash throws the ball 30 plus times, I do think Volk's going to get him one of them.
So, by the way, for all those who are in the comments, and we do have quite a bit of engagement in the comments, Coach, I know that you can't see that. That might be that's probably just fine, because we don't need you looking in the comments and seeing what they're posting. But if there's some good questions, folks, we'll throw them on in. Let's go ahead and kind of continue on. We've got Mankato next. Interesting team to look at here. I saw them week 0 against Northwest Missouri State, who is traditionally in the top 5 in the country at stopping the run. And Mankato had almost 200 yards of rushing in the first half against them. And Mankato, for the first handful of games this season, looked like vintage Mankato, and they were looking like a top 10 team who could physically kind of, bully ball you. And then since then, the last 6 games, they're 3-3. They've had some injuries on the offensive line. And defensively, they're giving up 23.9 a game, which is not great in the company of the teams that we've been looking at here, if we're going to be perfectly honest. And I think that Mankato, this is going to sound like a wild thing, I think they may have the highest ceiling in this group, and also potentially have shown the lowest floor. And because of the fact that none of the rest of these teams have kind of been leaking oil down the stretch here, and Mankato is. And Mankato, if they all of a sudden turn it on, went on a run, and got everything going again, I mean, I'm not going to say it wouldn't shock me, because I just haven't seen it lately. But, man, they have the potential. Coach, have you had a chance to come across anything with your radar with Mankato at all, or any observations you've had?
Yeah, actually, their O-line coach, Chad Henning, is probably one of the better O-line coaches I know. And when you look back at their season, you talked about them leaking oil. I think it really all started last time they played Augie. It was a 34-16 game, and when Augustana held Mankato to 21 yards rushing, I mean, it's hard for Mankato to really do what Mankato does. And Augie just put it to them, and I think ever since then they've been trying to find their identity again. And it was 2 tough losses with Sioux Falls and Duluth. Obviously, Duluth kind of had their number at Duluth over the last several years. But it all starts with their run game, and last year they were a yard per rush better than they are this year. So I do think they're a good football team. They're just lacking a little bit of confidence in the run game right now.
That's right, folks. Coach did his homework before coming to the show. Look at Coach go. AC, you and I have kind of talked on and off about teams in the Northern Sun, about teams in the RMAC. We have an open dialogue. Folks don't know that AC and I chat fairly frequently. Earlier in the year, man, it felt like this Mankato team was going to be the team that was going to be like the top seed in the super region. Everybody's going to have to come through. Has it kind of felt like that? Like they're kind of holding on?
Yeah, like Coach pointed out, that major inflection point with the Augie game. Like I didn't have a chance to watch it. Was that a really physical game? Did Augie beat up on him a little bit physically?
You know
That's
what?
all Northern some games are like that, but
Here's what's happened is Augustana forced them to go away from what they wanted to do, which was pound the rock and be opportunistic in the passing game. And it made them have to be a lot of thirds and tens and stuff like that. And that's just not where this offense wants to live. And, definitely I'm going to give a shout out here in the comments. Sam Backer, halfback they have, is quicker than a hiccup. And, he was a redshirt player a year ago, and he's their leading rusher right now. If they can get him to the outside, he is a heck of a ball player. But I don't disagree with this comment here in terms of consistency. If they can come out and play their best, they're going to be real tough in this field. But at the same time, they just haven't seen it enough lately. And, if we go ahead and we take a look a little bit at them, Hayden Eckern that they have is another one of these quarterbacks who's a good +1 rusher. Over 300 yards rushing on the season, 11 touchdowns. When they get down in the red zone, he's a nice guy to have. But once they're not a prolific passing team. Trey Watson. Here's an interesting thing: is Trey Watson in weeks 2, 3, and 4 had 100-yard games. Since then, has not had a 100-yard game and has had 1 touchdown last 6 weeks. I think Trey Watson is the type of player that they would really need to get going in a game like this, because I think Augustana is going to be really tough against the run like they have been. So Mankato, they've lost 3 in a row to Augustana, and none of them have been terribly close. So one shout out I want to give to is Antonio Alzheimer, maybe the hardest hitter in the Northern Sun, and he's decleating a Minot runner right there, who's probably making sure that he has his chin strap on tight on that one. But top tackler for their team, and I'll be real interested to see what kind of Mankato team shows up Saturday. I'll obviously be at that game, AC. You're going to be boots on the ground at Gunnison for Western Colorado. So, Coach, I guess that just means you got to go down, or you got to go to cover the Lone Star game for us, right?
Yeah, I need to go to San Angelo, huh?
Now that's an easy drive, right?
About 2.5, 3, not bad.
Oh, see, that's not bad. Okay, I'll tell Coach Bolte and all that stuff that you want to, come see Bemidji play again and all that. You were hoping I wasn't going to bring up Bemidji like that in the comment, were you?
It's still a sore subject, absolutely.
Well, speaking of sore subjects, our 7th team here, Bemidji State, they kind of snuck on in, and they won they got in here by winning 3 in a row. As you see, offensive scoring 26 a game. That's not high flying by any means, but defensively they're giving up 15 a game in a conference that's been really competitive, and a lot of teams beating each other. So that's a pretty good number in the Northern Sun, if I got to say so. Total defense, 240 yards a game, 82 rushing. A lot of these teams are good against the rush. So that said, Coach, you got a chance to see them obviously a year ago. In retrospect, how were they different versus kind of what you were expecting? What was the defensive line the story?
Absolutely. I mean, Marcus Hanson, he's still doing what Marcus Hanson's done for years. Yeah, that's him right there. Phenomenal player. He doesn't look all that big.
Right,
He just looks big.
5'11", 240.
Yeah, but he plays like he's 6'6", 280. I mean, he's phenomenal. Their whole defense did a great job. Last year, what they did against us that I wasn't expecting is they just literally dropped 15, 20 yards. They weren't going to let us throw the ball deep, and I did a terrible job as a play caller of adjusting to that. And they held me to my lowest yards and lowest points I've ever had as a coordinator. So kudos to that staff. But it all runs through Marcus Hanson on defense. They're all offense. You've said it a lot is opportunistic. They have the ability to take it deep. With Bryce Peters, I mean, he's one of the best receivers in the Northern Sun. He's a dangerous weapon that this week I look forward to that matchup with him and Andrew Pitts for sure.
Do you think, Coach, that Angelo will look to have Pitts follow him around on the field, or how do you think Angelo will go about that?
If I know Gersh, I think he's going to put his best player on their best player and go 1-for-1 there and make the other 10 play against the other 10.
Fair enough. Now, Coach, here's a little bit of difference. When you saw Bemidji last year, they had a quarterback who would come in and do Wildcat. And that's Sam McGath on the page right there, because Brandon Alt, who is a gunslinger from the past 8 seasons, I think, he ran out of time and graduated. Now he's playing, I think, in the Arena League. But Sam McGath is a little bit more of a dual threat type guy. And, we've been talking about almost every one of these teams has a guy that's not afraid to go ahead, put his head down, and go 15 times a game, in the quarterback run game. Now, you guys, when they were going against you, he was probably as good as any run threat they had.
Yeah, we were very successful defensively against Bemidji. They were averaging 30-something points a game last year, and we held them in. Brandon Alt was obviously a stud. But last year they had, correct me if I'm wrong, the left tackle that was a 2-time All-American. That him by himself took away our best pass rusher.
Ty Cobb, yes.
I don't necessarily know if they have that guy this year, but they're going to need a guy like that to contain Angelo State, I can tell you that.
Well, in Bemidji State, I've said it all year long, I think that they probably have the best offensive line in the Northern Sun. So we're going to have some great matchups at the point of attack in this game. I just don't feel like this is one of those games that's going to get very high scoring. It just seemed all these things kind of seem to be moving in that direction.
Yeah, last year that we all thought that it was going to be high scoring Bemidji UT Permian Basin, and it was 10-3. So I could see it going that way again. Absolutely.
Well, the Bemidji coaches told me that once they got the lead, they kind of took their foot off the gas. They were pretty comfortable. That's what they told me. Nothing?
Yeah, nothing.
Marcus Hanson, I watched him at Sioux Falls in a game that they won, which is like a pseudo playoff game at that point. Sioux Falls has a quarterback, Cam Dean, who can run. He's got speed. He chased him down on a few quarterback runs from the backside DN position. Blew my mind. I haven't seen anybody do that all year like that. He is a very quick player. He's got 13 TFLs, 18 quarterback hurries. That's a number. But so they also have, he's not the only guy on their D line. They've got a handful of guys that are all that 8 to 10 TFLs type of player. So I'll be real interested to see. I think that they are going to try and, kind of sell out on the quarterback runs and things like that against Angelo and take their chances that they're not going to get beat on the deep balls. But we'll have to see. Really, I think a very interesting matchup with those two. Notice there at the very top, they played there in 2022 and came up short. Ready for a rematch. And you can see there's Coach Bolte and the rest of his crew right there. We're going to take a quick break here, guys, for our sponsor, our corporate sponsor of D2football.com. They almost opened up a location, Kris, down, two of them they had somebody looking into the Odessa, Midland area, towards the end of last year. I don't know what happened. You guys lost in the playoffs, and then we never heard about it again. So I think something, people were just really enjoying watching our show or something. But I'm going to give you a hard time a little bit here and there. So, so AC was talking about last night on our show, Coach. I know you didn't watch it, so I'll tell you. We were talking about wings. All right, because Bosses has wings. Coach, are you a bone-in or a boneless wing guy?
Bone-in flats only.
Look, we didn't talk before this either.
No.
We didn't talk before this either. We just,
What's wrong with drummies? Where are we going with
ranch
this?
Type of guy? Are you one of those weirdos?
Are you talking about to me?
Yeah.
Just to set the record straight, down in Kansas City about 20 years ago, I was a wing eating champion. Hooters restaurant had a wing eating competition, and they went around the restaurant and they picked out a bunch of people, and they came to my table, and we had probably been out a little longer than we needed to the night before, and I was in no shape to be doing something like this. So it was a great time to do it. And so they brought me right out to the front with about 20 other folks, and they put about 15 wings in front of us that were like crimson red in color with, just kind of, and a tall beer. And I still have the trophy somewhere here. So I'm just
One
saying.
of your greatest accomplishments, huh?
Yeah, it's right up there, matter of fact. Yeah. So I shouldn't have said that on the show, because now I will be getting roasted about that for God knows how long. But what's wrong with drummies, you two?
They're just for kids. Like drums.
No, they're not.
My son.
There's more meat on those. Where are we going with this?
No, there's not more meat on it. You just got to know how to eat the flat. There's a whole technique. Like really good.
Yeah, there is. Like
me,
this. Yeah.
Are you one of the people, Coach? Like I'm putting the flat in, and then as I pull it out, it's clear.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
all
yeah.
in one.
Oh yeah.
But
AC, don't be acting like I haven't eaten more wings than you have. Let's look at our bodies. I mean, where are we going with this, really?
I don't wear it, but trust me,
you eat a lot more salad than yeah. Coach, help me out here. Skinny guy's trying to take shots at the fat kid. But
Coach understands.
Finishing up with Bosses, their pizza of the week by our sponsor here. Pizza sauce, cream cheese. I don't know about that. Pepperoni, mozz. I could do everything except for the cream cheese. I think I could do without. AC, how do you favor your pizza?
Oh, well, I'm a weirdo. I actually don't like cheese. So pizza, I got to be.
We're about to kick you off the show here in a minute.
I'm sorry. But,
don't like cheese. Coach, where are we headed with this?
Yeah, I'm lactose intolerant, but I eat the heck out of some cheese now. I'll just deal with the repercussions.
After you said I don't eat cheese, AC, no one heard anything after that.
Look,
their heads blew off. They didn't know what you said after that.
I like jalapenos on my pizza. I like a little bit of spice on it.
Okay, fair enough. I'm Italian sausage and pepperoni. Coach, how about you?
Pepperoni bacon.
Bacon is good.
When Brandon and I tried to do that pizza contest last year at Bosses, we did extra pepperoni, and they have spicy pepperoni. That was a mistake. We were hurting for a little while. Moving right along, past food, which is never something easy for me. In case anybody's wondering, the games are on ESPN Plus this year.
What? That's so cool.
Yeah.
Like all these playoff games across the board.
Once they get to the semis, I think that they will be either on Plus or maybe like ESPN2, but we're not quite that far yet. But I did see this, wanted to pass it on to our fans. I haven't seen anything posted about this other than seeing it with one of the schools had a mention of it in their notes for games this week. So I wanted to point that on out. Don't look for it on your local, on Flow, on RMAC Network, Northern Sun. ESPN Plus is, and that's all I've been told is just that. So that's all I don't know anything more, but I wanted to pass that on to everybody else. So enough with all the pregame stuff. This is what everybody's here for. We got Minnesota State at Augustana. I will be at this game. AC, I've already gone ahead and picked this on the Sunday night show. I've got Augustana winning this game. Where are you going? Do you like the Mavs to rebound and end this streak that Augustana has? Or do you like Augustana to go ahead and win at home?
Well, playing a team twice is always difficult. That is probably the hardest thing to do in football, playing a team twice in the same year. But even with that being said, just the Mankato's been 3-3. They're coming off a loss. I know Augie's coming off a loss too, but they're coming off a loss to a playoff caliber team. I'm gonna roll with Augie. I think Augie gets it done on their home field. They won this game earlier in the season. I think it'll probably be closer, but I think Augie rolls at home.
Fair enough. Coach,
Yeah,
is this going to be an Augie sweep, or what are your thoughts on this one?
So Augustana has obviously won the last 3 matchups by 2 touchdowns or more. I think the key to this game,
Coach, stop trying to show off with your homework.
if Sam Backer can rush for 150 yards, Mankato can keep it close. I don't see that happening. I think Augustana wins by 11.
Coach giving numbers here. Okay. Moving on, and I'm sure that no one from Mankato will give me a hard time about this when I see them Saturday. Yeah. Let's move to Central Washington, playing at Western Colorado. 8-2 against 10-1. Does Western Colorado, do you think, get their revenge in this one? Or does Central get them again?
Can Coach go first on this one?
Coach can go first on this one.
Yeah, I didn't get to talk about Western Colorado earlier. I was a little bit late to the party. So
yeah, you know what, Coach, this is you've got the stage here.
Yeah, so obviously me and Coach Jazz Baines have a good relationship. Great coach. Same with Kris over at Central Washington. Great guys, great dudes. I think when you look at this game, the key's gonna be the quarterbacks. All right, I think both teams are really good run defenses. So it's going to come down to which quarterback has the most success in the air. I think it's going to be a quick change for the offensive coordinators. They're probably both going to try to run the ball early. They're going to realize they can't, and then it's going to turn into a 35 to 40 throws a game for both sides. I think if you look at the stats, obviously Drew Nash is a better thrower. Playing against both defenses in the past, I think what Todd does over at Western Colorado, you don't ever see. It's tough. He brings exotic pressures all the time. Obviously, I'm a Lone Star coach. It's tough to pick against Central Washington, but I think it's going to be a really tight game, and I think Drew Nash is the key to this win for Western Colorado.
Coach, I understand on our national shows when we get into this and I go against the Northern Sun, I hear about it a little bit, but it's okay. We're being honest. So it's our honest assessment that people are here for. AC, I'm going to go next, and I'm going to let you go last. I took Central Washington on the show, and the reason I did was because I was impressed by the way that they stepped up last year the way they did. They've got experience. I have a feeling they're somehow going to get enough going in the run game and be opportunistic enough, and I think the first team to 20 wins this football game. AC, how do you have it?
So you guys make a lot of points that I totally agree with. I think both of them are going to come out trying to establish the run game. I think it's going to be a lot more crucial, though, for Central Washington to establish the run game. I think if Western can get if Western can get a 10, 14-point lead where Kenny McGill is having to drop back and Ricky Freeman can truly just pin his ears back, I think that really plays into Western's favor.
Yeah.
Whereas if Central Washington shuts down Western's run game, I still have a lot of confidence that Drew Nash can, kind of backpack it and still make it happen. I picked this one wrong last year. I thought Western would win comfortably just after UTPB. I think last year heading into it, UTPB had just beat Central Washington heading in. So I favored Western to win kind of big, and I got burned. I'm going to go with Western again, but I agree with you. I think it's the first to 20. I think Drew Nash, I think his legs play a big role in this game. I think Drew Nash and his ability to not only scramble, but just extend plays, making guys cover for 3, 4, 5 seconds. I think he hits on a big play down the field, and I think Western gets it done. I think they get revenge for last year.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, when we talk next week, I will congratulate myself when I get these games right and you guys don't. But we got the Beavers of Bemidji State going down and trying to get revenge from a playoff loss a few years back at Angelo State. Neither one of these two teams are trying to be an offensive juggernaut, but two strong defensive clubs. AC, tell me a little bit about what you got cooking here.
So, is Bemidji going to be the Central Washington of this year's Super Region 4 bracket? Earning their way in, maybe not having the prettiest record, but having a really good defense and just kind of being a tough, scrappy team. I'm kind of thinking that they have the potential to be, but I think Angelo is just going to be too big, strong, and fast for him. I think Angelo, and the way that their offense is trending in the right direction, I think Angelo on their home field gets it done. Probably by at least like 10 points, but I think Bemidji will show well for itself. I don't think they're going to get blown out, but I think Angelo wins this one.
You know what's interesting about this one is, you mentioned something. If Angelo were to hit some of those big plays right away and get out by a few scores, I think this is a bad spot for Bemidji. I don't see them being the type of team to make a comeback in that moment. I think that they need to control the action. Shorten the football game a little bit, play a little bit of more of the style that's conducive to what their squad's good at. I have Bemidji State pulling the upset on the road here. I took them last year. Ooh, coach, I wasn't supposed to bring that up again. And they came through for me last year. Coach Bolte's going to try and take care of business. I'm going to give him a phone call right after the show, let him know the stakes. But and my guy John Dykstra, our Super Region 3 MIAA guy.
JD.
That's right, JD. We're gonna go ahead and be on a little bit on the attack here. But Coach, break it down. Tell me why Witt's got this one wrong.
Well, if history repeats itself, last time Bemidji went down to San Angelo, it was 33-7. I think when you look at this game, it's going to be, can Andrew Pitts be as dominant against Bryce Peters as he is every other game of his career? And if he shuts him down, I think Angelo's other 10 on defense is better than Bemidji's other 10 on offense. I think Sam McGath's a heck of a quarterback. I think that Braden Fuller's a heck of a quarterback. And I think when this game is said and done, with about 4 minutes to go, Braden Fuller's going to break a 70-yarder, and they're going to win by 10. That's what I think is going to happen.
Fair enough. And by the way, Lenny Morrison going ahead and giving Witt a little bit of help. Just when I thought I'd point that on out there. Making me feel a little bit better about my pick. But, those are our 3 games here for the week. I want to make sure that everyone who's kind of tuning into our D2 programming this week, I will be on air. In case you can't get enough of my big butt, I will be on air again tomorrow with the GLIAC guy, Tony Nicolette, and John Dykstra. John apparently was having so much fun on his own show that he had to be in the comments for this one. And so we will talk about Super Region 3, and I'll explain to you why Harding is going to come out of that. And everybody else is going to fight me in the comments on that tomorrow, I guarantee it.
I might be with you there.
Chuck Bittner will also be on hosting some of our other shows. I think he's going to be on SR2 and SR1 as the week continues. They may even go ahead and have a show tomorrow night. I don't think they've kind of figured that all out just yet. But I will tell you right now, SR3 will be tomorrow. We will be live and we'll be at 8 o'clock Central. So, Coach, I'm glad that everything was not as bad
Thank God.
as it could have been, and
Yeah.
we greatly appreciate you still making time for us to come on and coming on doing a run in. It was still well worth it. Now, Coach, after I beat you in the picks this week, are you still coming on next week? Are we okay with that?
Absolutely. But I want you to tell Tony when you see him, he picked us to win the championship last year. He didn't pick us this year, and we went 7-4. So I need him to pick us.
Is that how? That's right. He did pick you 2 years ago.
Absolutely.
That's I will pass that message on. Well, folks, greatly appreciate you guys tuning on in for our Super Region 4 show. AC, once again, can't thank you enough to be with us here. And Coach, for coming on as well. Great engagement in the comments, everybody. We will go ahead and we will see everybody else at the games.